I stood in the crowded marketplace of Chang'an, my robes dusty from weeks of travel. The silk merchant sneered when I entered his shop. "These silks are not for beggars," he announced loudly, making sure everyone heard. His daughter Mei Ling, the woman I had courted for months, giggled behind her sleeve, pretending not to recognize me. They had no idea who I truly was. For weeks, they had extracted my trade secrets while planning to discard me after stealing my Western connections. I had heard them mocking my provincial manners when they thought I was gone. Their public humiliation was calculated to destroy my reputation before I could expose their scheme. They thought I was just another merchant to use and discard, but beneath my dusty clothes was an imperial seal and enough gold to buy their entire empire. Today they would learn that appearances can be deadly when you mock the wrong traveler. I entered Chang'an as the morning sun gilded its towering walls, my simple traveler's robes collecting dust from the road. Around me, merchants called their wares, aristocrats paraded in silks worth a farmer's yearly harvest, and imperial guards maintained the empire's peace with stern vigilance. Despite the wealth hidden in my saddlebags, I looked no different from any provincial trader come to seek fortune in the capital. This was precisely my intention. My name is Li Wei, and though few in Chang'an would recognize it, in the western provinces my silk trading network stretched across mountains and deserts to lands the imperial court only knew from fables. My wealth had grown quietly, steadily, as I maintained my father's principle. True value lies in character, not appearance. The Qian family's silk emporium dominated the central market district, its carved wooden facade depicting scenes from imperial mythology. 4 generations had built it into the most prestigious establishment in the capital, supplier to the imperial household itself. The marriage contract between myself and Mei Ling, Lord Qian's only daughter, would unite Eastern craftsmanship with Western trade routes, an alliance of perfect symmetry. Or so I had allowed them to believe. I secured modest lodgings near the West Gate, rather than the luxurious accommodations offered by Lord Qian. "How charmingly provincial," he had commented. When I declined, the slight condescension in his tone carefully measured to avoid true offense. I merely smiled and spoke of old habits. In truth, I preferred positions that allowed observation without scrutiny. My first formal meeting with the Qian family came 3 days after my arrival. I dressed in finer clothes, but still without ostentation, carrying only a single jade ornament that signified my family's lineage to those educated enough to recognize it. Lord Qian received me in his private study, walls lined with scrolls recording transactions dating back to his grandfather's time. "The journey treated you well?" he inquired, pouring tea with practiced precision. "The western roads grow safer each year," I replied, accepting the cup with proper deference. "Though bandits still trouble the mountain passes, such hardships you endure," Mei Ling commented as she entered, her entrance perfectly timed to seem spontaneous. "Father, you didn't tell me our guest had arrived." She moved with practiced grace, her robes whispering against the polished floor. I had met her twice before during preliminary negotiations, and each time found her beauty matched by evident intelligence. Today she carried a wooden frame with half-completed embroidery, a domestic touch that seemed calculated to impress a potential husband. "The desert bloom pattern," I noted, examining her work. "Rare to see it rendered so accurately by someone who hasn't traveled the western routes." A momentary tightening around her eyes was quickly masked by a demure smile. "I have excellent instructors." The conversation flowed through proper channels. Discussion of dowry arrangements, the planned expansion of trade routes, mutual benefits of our family's union. Lord Qian expertly balanced between treating me as an honored guest and subtly emphasizing his family's superior position in Chang'an society. I played my role with equal skill, revealing enough of my Western connections to tempt without exposing crucial details of suppliers and routes. As we toured the main shop floor, I was introduced to Jin, Lord Qian's chief apprentice. Unlike his master, whose hands showed years of administrative work rather than craft, Jin's fingers bore the calluses and dye stains of a true artisan. "Jin oversees our dyeing process," Lord Qian explained, His family has served mine for 3 generations. I examined a bolt of indigo silk Jin was inspecting. This depth of color is remarkable. Double-dyed? Triple, Jin corrected immediately, then glanced at his master. For the most valued clients. Lord Qian's slight frown at Jin's initiative did not escape my notice. Indeed, now. Shall we discuss the marriage date? The autumn moon festival would be auspicious. Later, as I prepared to depart, Mei Ling accompanied me to the compound gate. Away from her father's presence, she appeared more direct, her questions probing, deeper into my business practices. The Sogdian merchants drive hard bargains, she commented. How do you maintain your margins with their price demands? Relationships built over generations, I answered, deliberately vague. My father established trust that gold alone cannot purchase. Her eyes narrowed slightly before her practiced smile returned. How fortunate that our union will allow such relationships to continue flourishing. I bowed formally, but as I straightened, caught the calculating assessment in her gaze, not the look of a bride contemplating her future husband, but a merchant appraising a valuable acquisition. That night, rather than returning directly to my lodgings, I circled back toward the Qian compound. Years of trade negotiations had taught me the value of verifying assumptions. The servant's entrance remained poorly guarded, allowing me to slip into the shadows of the garden where raised voices carried from Lord Qian's study. His suppliers extend beyond the Taklamakan, Mei Ling was saying. Routes even the imperial caravans consider too dangerous. And he controls them exclusively? Lord Qian asked. For now, I've documented half his network already from our conversations. Once the marriage is formalized, I'll have access to everything. Lord Qian's laugh carried clearly. He's naive, wealthy but provincial. He trusts too easily. After we establish direct connections, the marriage becomes unnecessary, Mei Ling continued. The Western barbarian can return to his mountains without his trade routes or his bride. I remained motionless as their words confirmed my suspicions. The betrayal was not unexpected. Such schemes were common in the silk trade, but the cold precision of their planning deserved admiration. Had I truly been the provincial merchant they believed, their trap would have been inescapable. I slipped away as silently as I had come, my expression unchanged despite the confirmation of treachery. My plans would require adjustment, but my purpose in Chang'an had crystallized. What had begun as a business alliance would become a lesson in judgment. One that would echo through the markets of Chang'an long after I departed. As I walked back through the darkened streets, I considered how centuries of silk trading had taught my family one immutable truth. The strongest threads reveal their quality under tension. The Qians had shown me their true nature without realizing they were being tested. Now I would show them mine, though not in any way they might anticipate. The pieces were arranged. The test was confirmed. Now would begin the systematic unraveling of the proud legacy they believed unassailable. For 3 days I observed the patterns of the Qian shop from various vantage points throughout the marketplace. I noted when Lord Qian was most visible to the public, which hours brought aristocratic customers, and when Mei Ling held court among her social circle. More importantly, I identified moments when Jin was left to manage the main floor alone. Each detail would serve my purpose. On the 4th morning, I dressed in the same travel-worn garments I had worn upon entering Chang'an. I added subtle touches of dust to my boots and allowed my hair to remain slightly unkempt. To casual observation, I appeared as any provincial merchant of modest means, precisely the sort Lord Qian would disdain. The mid-morning sun had drawn the wealthiest customers to the shop when I entered. Lord Qian himself stood near the front, discussing silk qualities with a minor court official. Mei Ling sat at a side table with 3 aristocratic women, their ornate hairpins marking them as connected to influential families. Jin worked quietly in the corner, recording inventory on a bamboo scroll. I approached with the measured confidence of someone with legitimate business but without pretension. Lord Qian's gaze flicked toward me, then away, dismissing my worth instantly based on appearance. When his conversation concluded, I stepped forward. Honorable merchant, I began with appropriate deference, I seek fine silks for wedding gifts. I am told your establishment offers the finest in Chang'an. Lord Qian's expression transformed with remarkable speed. The welcoming smile he had offered the departing official hardened into thinly veiled contempt as he surveyed my dusty appearance. Our silks begin at 50 silver taels per bolt, he stated, naming a price triple the market rate. I doubt they would suit your purposes. I maintained my composure, responding as any earnest customer might. The occasion merits the expense. Perhaps I could see examples of your finest work? The conversation at Mei Ling's table quieted as attention turned toward us. I kept my face partially turned from her, though I had no doubt she recognized me immediately. Lord Qian's voice rose, ensuring all present could hear his response. These silks are for distinguished clients who understand their value, not for travelers who would soil them with dirty hands. The calculated insult hung in the air. Several wealthy customers exchanged glances, some uncomfortable, others smugly appreciative of the social boundary being enforced. This was Chang'an's elite culture at its most naked, wealth and appearance determining human worth. From Mei Ling's table came a delicate laugh, precisely timed and perfectly pitched to wound, without seeming deliberately cruel. Father always could spot a worthy customer, she commented, deliberately avoiding my eyes, though she knew exactly who stood before her. Her companions tittered in response, a chorus of practiced disdain. I saw Jin's hands tighten on his inventory scroll. He glanced up, meeting my gaze briefly before looking away, discomfort evident in his posture. Even in this small gesture, he revealed character his master lacked. I apologize for the misunderstanding, I said simply, offering a bow appropriate. For social equals, a subtle challenge Lord Qian would certainly notice. I shall seek accommodation elsewhere. Lord Qian's expression flickered with momentary uncertainty at my dignified response, but he quickly recovered. That would be advisable, he replied coldly. I turned and left without further comment, feeling Mei Ling's calculating gaze follow me. She would be wondering if I had recognized her, if her duplicity remained hidden. Let her wonder. Uncertainty would be the first of many discomforts I would introduce to the Qian household. Outside in the busy street, I paused momentarily, allowing the marketplace to flow around me like a river around stone. Merchants called their wares, porters pushed carts laden with goods, officials passed in sedan chairs. No one paid attention to a dusty traveler standing motionless amid the commerce of the capital. I had confirmed what I already knew. The Qians had revealed themselves completely, behaving precisely as I had anticipated. The humiliation they had inflicted was not a momentary lapse, but the true expression of their character. Such people would never change through ordinary setbacks or modest consequences. Only complete reversal of fortune would bring understanding. As I walked away from the shop, I mentally adjusted my timetable. What I had planned to execute over weeks could now proceed immediately. The Qians had provided the final justification needed for their own undoing. That afternoon, I returned to my lodgings and opened a concealed compartment in my traveling chest. Inside lay the official documents and seals that verified my true position. As Imperial Trade Envoy to the Western regions, I carried authority that superseded even the prestigious Qian family connections. I had kept this role concealed, even from my own retainers in Chang'an, preferring to evaluate potential partners without the distortion of imperial authority. I selected specific documents and summoned my most trusted servant. Bring these to Administrator Feng at the Imperial Trade Bureau. Tell him I request a meeting at the Hour of the Snake tomorrow. The servant departed immediately, carrying messages that would set irrevocable events in motion. I then wrote a series of letters to my agents throughout the city, instructing them to implement contingency plans we had established upon my arrival. Each agent controlled a specific aspect of the operation: financial leverage, legal documentation, witness coordination, and strategic timing. By nightfall, the first reports returned. Administrator Feng had agreed to meet and expressed particular interest in the tax discrepancies I had previously documented in the Qian family records. My financial agent had successfully purchased 3 outstanding debts from Qian family creditors, placing significant obligations directly under my control. The legal documents required for a comprehensive business acquisition had been prepared and authenticated by the proper authorities. Each piece aligned perfectly, the machinery of consequence building momentum that would soon become unstoppable. I felt no particular pleasure in what was to come, merely the satisfaction of correct action proceeding as designed. The Qian family had built their empire on appearance rather than substance, on exploitation rather than value. Such foundations inevitably fail when proper pressure is applied. That night I slept soundly, undisturbed by doubt or hesitation. In the morning would begin the systematic reconstruction of the silk trade in Chang'an, starting with the dismantling of its most prestigious family. They had refused me entry to their shop based on my appearance. Soon they would learn the cost of such judgment when applied to someone who could buy everything they possessed with a fraction of his wealth. I would not simply punish them. I would replace them with something better, something worthy of the craftsmen who dedicated their lives to the art of silk. The apprentice Jin's talents deserved a master who valued substance over appearance. Chang'an's markets deserved honest traders, and the Qian family deserved exactly what they had earned through generations of arrogance. The public humiliation they had inflicted would return to them tenfold, precisely measured and administered with the same cold calculation they had shown me. Administrator Feng received me in his private office within the Imperial Trade Bureau, the walls lined with maps showing trade routes spanning the known world. Unlike many officials who surrounded themselves with ostentatious displays of wealth, Feng maintained austere quarters, his authority evident in his bearing rather than his surroundings. "Trade Envoy Li," he greeted me with the formal bow due my rank. "Your message indicated matters of significant imperial interest." I presented my credentials and the imperial seal that confirmed my authority. The emperor values honest trade above all else. It stabilizes prices, ensures quality, and maintains the harmony between regions. "Indeed," Feng agreed, studying the documents I had brought. "These tax discrepancies in the Qian family records are concerning. The imperial treasury appears to have been defrauded of substantial sums." "Over 15 years, I confirmed. "I discovered these irregularities during marriage negotiations with Lord Qian's daughter. Their accounting methods systematically underreport silk imports from the western regions." Feng's expression remained professional, but his eyes narrowed slightly. The Qian family's influence extended throughout Chang'an's commercial district, yet imperial authority superseded all other concerns. "What do you propose, Envoy Li?" "A restructuring of their holdings under imperial oversight," I replied. "I have prepared to purchase their entire operation at a price that cannot be reasonably refused. The transaction would resolve the tax obligations while sending a clear message about proper commercial conduct." Administrator Feng considered this approach. "The Qians have powerful connections, but none more powerful than imperial authority," I reminded him. "I require only proper documentation and witnesses to ensure the transaction proceeds according to law." After examining the detailed records I provided, Feng nodded decisively. "I will assign 2 senior officials to accompany you when you are ready. The imperial seal will ensure compliance from even the most reluctant parties." With this foundation established, I proceeded to my next appointment. The banking house of Wei Brothers occupied an unassuming building near the Western Market. Unlike the Qian establishment, they displayed no ostentatious wealth, yet their influence extended throughout the empire's financial networks. Master Wei recognized me immediately despite my modest attire. "Envoy Li, an unexpected honor. Your father was a valued client for many years." "And I hope to continue that relationship," I replied as we settled in his private counting room. "I require access to substantial funds within the next 3 days." Without blinking at the enormous sum I specified, Master Wei simply nodded. "Your accounts with us are well capitalized for such a withdrawal. May I ask the nature of the investment?" "A restructuring of Chang'an's silk trade," I answered. "One that will benefit honest merchants throughout the city." Master Wei's slight smile suggested he understood more than I had explicitly stated. "The funds will be available tomorrow. Would you prefer silver or gold for the transaction?" Both, I replied, presented in a manner that emphasizes the volume without appearing ostentatious. Of course, he agreed. Substance over appearance, a principle your father valued highly. My next stop took me to a modest residence in the artisan quarter. The home of Jin, Lord Qian's chief apprentice, revealed much about the young man's character. Despite his crucial role in the Qian workshop, he lived simply, his small courtyard filled with dye plants rather than ornamental flowers. I observed him through the open workshop door before announcing my presence. He knelt before a damaged bolt of silk, painstakingly repairing a tear with stitches so fine they appeared invisible. This was silk the Qians had likely discarded as flawed, yet in Jin's hands it was being transformed into something valuable once more. When I finally stepped forward, Jin looked up in surprise, immediately recognizing me despite my different attire from the shop encounter. "Honored customer," he began cautiously, clearly uncertain about my presence at his home. "Not a customer," I corrected gently. "An admirer of true craftsmanship. Your work exceeds anything I have seen in the western provinces." Jin's wariness remained, but he offered proper hospitality, serving tea in simple but perfectly formed cups. Lord Qian's behavior yesterday was, he hesitated, searching for diplomatic phrasing. "Precisely what I expected," I finished for him. "Tell me, how long have you served the Qian family?" 12 years, Jin replied. "My father was their master dyer before me and his father before him. Yet you live modestly while creating treasures for others," I observed. Jin's expression revealed momentary surprise at my directness. "The craft itself is the treasure, honored sir. Each bolt of silk carries the knowledge of generations." "And what would you do?" I asked carefully. "If you controlled the Qian establishment, would you maintain their current practices?" Jin set down his teacup with deliberate precision. "Such questions are beyond my position." "Humor me," I pressed, "as a theoretical exercise." After considering my request, Jin spoke with unexpected passion. "I would welcome all customers regardless of appearance. Quality silk should be available to any who truly value it, not merely those who can afford to display wealth. And I would ensure the craftsmen receive proper recognition for their skills." I nodded, satisfied with his answer. "Theoretical for now," I acknowledged. "But perspectives can change rapidly in Chang'an." Throughout the remainder of the day, I activated the network of contacts I had quietly established during my months in the capital. Merchants who had suffered from Qian's predatory practices were informed of potential changes in the market. Suppliers received assurances that their contracts would be honored regardless of upcoming restructuring. Strategic rumors were placed, with tea house proprietors known for their discreet information sharing. By evening, reports began returning through my network. The Qian shop had experienced an unusual number of creditors visiting throughout the afternoon, each requesting immediate payment of outstanding accounts. Their primary silk supplier had suddenly demanded advance payment for the next shipment, citing market instabilities. 3 aristocratic customers had canceled significant orders without explanation. These pressures were not coincidental. Each represented a carefully positioned lever, now being simultaneously activated to create precise stress on the Qian family's operations. The beauty of the approach lay in its apparent randomness. No single event could be traced to my influence, yet collectively they created unmistakable pressure. That night I visited the night market where more discreet commercial intelligence could be gathered. My contact, a spice merchant whose stall positioned him perfectly to overhear conversations from the nearby wine shop, confirmed what I had anticipated. Lord Qian spent the evening with his financial advisor, he reported quietly. They appeared concerned. The daughter joined them later, arguing loudly enough to be heard through the screens. Something about marriage arrangements needing to be accelerated. I placed a pouch of silver in his hand. "Continue observing. Any changes in their routine would be valuable information." The foundations were now firmly established. Financial pressure, legal documentation, imperial authority, and strategic intelligence, each element perfectly positioned. The Qians had built their empire on appearance and exploitation. Now the structure would reveal its fundamental weakness when subjected to methodical pressure. As I returned to my lodgings, I passed the silent facade of the Chen shop. Behind those walls, they would be frantically seeking explanations for their suddenly precarious position. They would find none that satisfied them. The cause remained invisible, just as I had been invisible to them when judged solely by my appearance. Tomorrow would bring the culmination of these preparations. The reversal of fortune would be swift, complete, and conducted with the same cold calculation they had shown to countless others deemed beneath their station. I rose before dawn, watching the imperial city awaken from my window. Merchants unfolded their stalls. Servants drew water from public wells, and monks made their morning rounds, all following patterns established over centuries. Today, however, one of Chang'an's oldest commercial dynasties would see its foundations irreversibly shifted. I dressed in the same travel-worn robes that had triggered the Chen's disdain. The deliberate choice would make the coming reversal all the more pointed. The imperial officials would arrive separately, maintaining the appearance of a routine inspection until the precise moment their authority became necessary. Master Wei's assistants delivered the promised funds at the appointed hour, chests of silver and gold arranged to be transported without drawing undue attention. The amount would have purchased a provincial governorship, yet it was carried by men dressed as common porters, substance disguised by mundane appearance. The irony was not lost on me. As I walked through the marketplace toward the Chen establishment, my network of informants provided final confirmations. The family had spent a sleepless night addressing sudden financial demands. Suppliers had become increasingly insistent about advance payments. 3 more aristocratic clients had withdrawn orders without explanation. The pressure had been applied with precision, creating the exact degree of desperation required for my approach to succeed. The shop had just opened. When I arrived, its magnificent carved doors thrown wide to welcome the day's commerce. Lord Ken himself stood near the entrance, his normally imperious posture showing subtle signs of strain. Dark circles beneath his eyes confirmed reports of his sleepless night. His expression when he recognized me shifted rapidly from dismissive contempt to cautious reassessment as he noticed the 2 imperial officials who now materialized behind me. Their insignia unmistakable. "Honorable merchant," I began, using the same greeting I had offered before. "I have reconsidered your establishment." Lord Qian's professional smile appeared, though tension remained visible around his eyes. "Our humble shop welcomes all who appreciate quality," he responded, contradicting his previous behavior with smooth hypocrisy. "I am not interested in your silk," I clarified. "My interest extends to your entire operation." Confusion replaced his artificial welcome. "I do not understand your meaning." "Allow me to clarify," I continued, producing the imperial token that identified my position. "I wish to purchase your business, Lord Qian. All of it. The shop, your warehouses, your supplier contracts, your family residence, everything." Laughter burst from him, nervous and slightly too loud. "This shop has been in my family for generations. It is not for sale." "Everything has a price," I countered, signaling to my assistants. They approached with document cases bearing imperial seals. "I have taken the liberty of having the true value of your holdings assessed, including properties and obligations that you may have believed unknown to outsiders." The imperial officials stepped forward, presenting credentials that established their authority to oversee major commercial transactions. One unrolled a scroll containing precise valuations of each Qian property and business interest. "I am prepared to offer 3 times this amount," I stated calmly. The sum, when announced, caused Lord Qian's composure to falter visibly. It was astronomical, a fortune that no merchant could reasonably refuse, particularly one facing sudden financial pressures from multiple directions. Across the shop floor, Mei Ling had appeared from the private chambers. Her practiced elegance remained intact, but her eyes widened as she recognized me. The familiar calculation was evident in her expression as she assessed this unexpected development, attempting to determine whether her deception had been discovered. "This is highly irregular," Lord Chen protested, though with notably less conviction. "On the contrary," the senior imperial official interjected. "The procedures are being followed with perfect adherence to commercial law. The offer exceeds fair market value by a substantial margin. You are, of course, entitled to refuse, though such an opportunity is unlikely to present itself again. At a gesture from me, porters entered carrying the first chests of payment. The lids were opened to reveal stacked silver ingots, their value unmistakable. The assembled shop workers and early customers murmured in astonishment at the display. Lord Kian's resistance visibly crumbled as he stared at the wealth presented before him. Greed overwhelmed caution, exactly as I had anticipated. Perhaps we should discuss terms, he suggested, attempting to maintain the appearance of control. The terms are straightforward, I replied. Complete transfer of ownership with immediate effect. Full payment upon signing. Your family may retain personal possessions but must vacate commercial and residential properties by tomorrow's sunset. Over the next 3 hours, the transaction proceeded with methodical precision. Each document transferred another piece of the Chen Empire to my possession. The main shop, secondary locations, warehouses, supplier contracts, import licenses, and finally, their ancestral residence. Lord Kian's signature appeared on each scroll, his initial satisfaction gradually giving way to unease as the comprehensive nature of the transaction became apparent. Throughout the process, Mei Ling attempted to position herself advantageously, alternating between solicitous attention to her father and calculating glances in my direction. Her beauty remained striking, but now appeared as carefully crafted as the shop's facade, designed to conceal rather than reveal. As the final document was signed and sealed, I slowly removed my travel-worn outer robe, revealing the fine garments beneath that identified me as both a wealthy merchant and an imperial trade envoy. The deliberate revelation drew gasps from those gathered to witness the unprecedented transaction. Recognition and horror dawned simultaneously on Lord Qian's face. "You," he whispered, finally connecting the humble traveler he had dismissed with the man who had now acquired his entire legacy. "Yes," I confirmed calmly. "The provincial merchant you refused to serve. The naive suitor you planned to defraud after extracting trade secrets and Western connections. I believe our business is concluded." The blood drained from his face as understanding crashed upon him. His eyes darted to Mei Ling, whose composed expression had shattered into naked alarm. "There must be some misunderstanding," she began, approaching with practiced grace. "Whatever you may have overheard during your visits was exactly what you intended me to hear," I interrupted quietly. "Your plans for my trade routes, your mockery of my Western origins, your intention to dissolve our marriage once you had secured what you wanted." Lord Qian attempted to regain control of the situation. "These accusations are baseless. The transaction was freely entered into." "Indeed it was," I agreed, "just as you freely chose to judge me by appearance rather than character when I entered your shop in these same clothes." The imperial officials observed with professional detachment, their presence ensuring the irrevocable nature of what had transpired. The transaction had been conducted with perfect legality. The Empire recognized only the transfer of property, not the personal motivations behind it. I turned to address the gathered witnesses, shop workers, customers, and officials alike. "The Qian establishment will continue operations without interruption," I announced. "All existing orders will be honored. All workers will retain their positions at increased wages." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the assembled staff. Fear of sudden unemployment had been their primary concern since the transaction began. "However," I continued, "there will be changes in management and operating philosophy. This establishment will value substance over appearance, craft over status, and character over wealth." Lord Qian's expression had transformed from shock to calculation. He was already assessing how to rebuild from this setback, how to leverage the substantial payment to establish a new position in Chang'an's commercial hierarchy. His resilience, while admirable, was misplaced. He did not yet understand that this was merely the first movement in a more comprehensive restructuring. I had purchased not just his business, but his reputation. And in the imperial capital, reputation determined destiny more surely than gold. As Lord Qian and Mei Ling withdrew to the private chambers to gather personal possessions, I surveyed what was now mine. The magnificent shop with its centuries of history. The warehouses filled with silk worth a minor province's annual tax revenue. The contracts with suppliers throughout the empire. All acquired because a proud man had judged worth by appearance rather than character. All now to be transformed into something worthy of the materials it handled. The foundations were complete, the acquisition secure. Now would come the true restructuring, one that would send ripples throughout Chang'an's silk trade for generations to come. I stood in the center of what had been the Qian family's private office, now mine by right of purchase. Around me, imperial officials cataloged documents while shop workers continued serving the customers who had been drawn by rumors of the morning's dramatic events. The transition of ownership had created a spectacle that would be discussed throughout Chang'an for weeks to come. Mei Ling approached with calculated poise, her initial shock now concealed beneath a veneer of dignified acceptance. Her beauty remained striking, complemented by robes that would have fed a farming family for years. Every aspect of her appearance had been designed to entice and manipulate, a skill honed through years of practice. "There appears to be a misunderstanding between us," she began, her voice modulated to the precise tone that had once seemed genuine during our courtship. "Whatever you overheard during your visits must have been taken out of context." I studied her carefully, noting the subtle indications of strain beneath her composed exterior. "There is no misunderstanding, Mei Ling. I heard your plans for my trade routes very clearly. Your mockery of my Western origins, your intention to dissolve our marriage once you had secured what you wanted." Her expression flickered momentarily before she attempted a new approach. "My father sometimes speaks rashly. I merely followed his lead while harboring my own feelings. My affection for you was genuine." "Was it?" I asked quietly. "Then you will understand perfectly what it means to lose everything for someone else's pride." Color drained from her face as she realized the extent of my knowledge and the finality of my decision. Her carefully constructed facade cracked completely, revealing the calculation that had always been her true nature. "You provincial fool," she hissed, abandoning pretense entirely. "Do you think this ends here? My father has connections throughout the imperial court. This temporary humiliation will be nothing compared to what awaits you." I smiled slightly. "Connections require trust, Mei Ling. Trust requires reputation, and reputation in Chang'an is a fragile thing." Before she could respond, I turned to the imperial officials who had remained discreetly present throughout our exchange. "I believe you have additional matters to discuss with the Qian family." The senior official stepped forward, producing documents bearing the imperial treasury seal. "Lord Ken, we must address certain tax discrepancies discovered during review of your business records." Lord Chen, who had been supervising the collection of personal items, froze in mid-gesture. "What discrepancies?" "Systematic underreporting of silk imports from the western regions," the official replied, unrolling a scroll containing meticulously documented evidence. "The imperial treasury appears to have been deprived of its rightful portion for approximately 15 years. I watched recognition dawn in Lord Qian's eyes as he realized the comprehensive nature of his downfall. The transaction that had seemed merely a setback now revealed itself as complete destruction. Not only had he lost his business empire, but his remaining wealth would be consumed by tax penalties. "These records were private," he protested weakly. "How could they have been examined?" "Imperial trade envoys have considerable authority," I reminded him gently, "including the right to review documentation relevant to cross-regional commerce during marriage negotiations." Mei Ling's composure shattered completely. "You planned this from the beginning," she accused, her carefully modulated voice rising. With unchecked emotion. "No," I corrected. "I merely observed. You revealed yourselves through your actions and your choices. I simply ensured appropriate consequences followed." The gathered witnesses watched this exchange with varying degrees of satisfaction. Many had suffered under the Qian's arrogance over the years, their own businesses undermined by predatory practices disguised as superior craftsmanship. I turned my attention from the diminished Chen family, focusing instead on the future of the establishment. The imperial officials would handle the tax proceedings without my further involvement. My purpose now lay in transformation rather than retribution. "Send for Jin," I instructed one of the senior shop workers. "He should be at his workshop in the artisan quarter." While waiting for Jin's arrival, I examined the private records that detailed the true operation of the Qian Empire. The extent of their deception was impressive in its thoroughness. Workers underpaid while being showcased to customers as valued artisans. Suppliers squeezed to maintain profit margins that were already substantial. Quality compromised in subtle ways that only true experts would detect. Jin arrived looking apprehensive, clearly uncertain about his position following the change in ownership. He bowed deeply, maintaining the deference expected of an apprentice even in these extraordinary circumstances. "Master Jin," I greeted him, using the title he had earned through skill rather than birth. "Your expertise in silk craft is unparalleled in my experience." His surprise at the address was evident, but he responded with appropriate modesty. "You honor me, but I am merely an apprentice in service to the Chen family." "No longer," I informed him. "The Chen family has sold their interests in the silk trade. This establishment requires new management. Someone who understands that quality. Silk should be available to any who truly value it, not merely those who can afford to display wealth." Recognition flickered in his eyes as I echoed the words he had spoken during our conversation at his home. "You remember my theoretical exercise?" he observed cautiously. "Theory becomes practice today," I confirmed, producing a scroll from within my robes. "This document transfers ownership of the main shop and primary warehouses to your name, effective immediately." Absolute shock replaced his careful composure. "This cannot be possible. I have no means to purchase such properties." "It is not a purchase but a transfer," I clarified. "Build something worthy of the materials you handle, Jin. Consider it an investment in the future of Chang'an's silk trade." The gathered workers and officials watched in stunned silence as I formally presented the document to Jin. His hands trembled slightly as he accepted the scroll, the weight of its significance clearly overwhelming him. "Why?" he asked simply, the single word containing volumes of confusion and wonder. "Because skill deserves recognition. Because craft transcends status. Because the future of silk trade should be built on integrity rather than appearance." I gestured toward the Chen family, now huddled in conference with the treasury officials. They judged worth by robes rather than character. Show Chang'an a better way. As understanding of his new position settled upon him, Jin straightened his posture, the habitual deference of the apprentice falling away to reveal the confidence of a master craftsman. "The standards will be maintained," he promised. "But the purpose will change. No customer will be turned away for their appearance." I nodded in satisfaction. "My imperial position requires regular travel between Chang'an and the western provinces. I will return periodically to observe your progress." Throughout the remainder of the day, the restructuring continued with methodical precision. Workers were informed of wage increases. Suppliers were assured of fair treatment under new management. Customers were notified that existing orders would be honored without interruption. The Qian family departed as sunset approached, their aristocratic bearing considerably diminished by the day's revelations. Mei Ling cast one final glance in my direction. Hatred and grudging respect mingled in her expression. They carried only personal possessions, their empire of silk and status reduced to what could be transported in a single cart. I watched them disappear into the gathering dusk of Chang'an, their silhouettes diminishing among the crowds. Their fall was complete, not through violence or deception, but through the natural consequences of their own actions. The silk shop stood transformed, its foundation now built on substance rather than appearance. Jin had already begun reorganizing the main floor, bringing the finest works of apprentice craftsmen forward for display alongside established masters. The symmetry was perfect. The provincial merchant judged worthless had revealed himself as the architect of an empire's fall. The overlooked apprentice had become master of all he surveyed, and the proud family that valued appearance above character now faced the reality of a world that would judge them by their diminished station rather than their former glory. I returned to Chang'an 1 year later, the spring winds carrying the scent of plum blossoms through streets now familiar with my presence. The imperial token at my belt marked my official status, no longer concealed beneath travel-worn robes. As the emperor's newly appointed silk commissioner, my visits to the capital carried formal significance beyond mere commerce. The transformation of the former Qian establishment was evident even from the street. The imposing facade remained, but the carved dragons that had once signified exclusivity had been replaced with subtle patterns representing various silk weaving techniques, a sign welcomed all who appreciated craftsmanship regardless of status or appearance. Common laborers stood alongside aristocrats examining fabric, their questions receiving equal attention from attentive staff. Jin emerged from the private offices to greet me, his bearing now that of a confident master rather than a deferential apprentice. His robes, while finely made, maintained the practical simplicity of a working craftsman rather than adopting the ostentation that had characterized Lord Qian, Commissioner Li. He welcomed me with a respectful bow between equals. Your visit honors us. Master Jin, I returned the greeting. The changes you have implemented appear substantial. He guided me through the main floor, where new display methods showcased the natural beauty of the silks rather than emphasizing their exclusivity. Apprentices worked alongside master craftsmen, their contributions acknowledged openly. Customers of varying status received identical treatment, their appreciation for quality determining their service, rather than their apparent wealth. Our new approach has proven successful beyond expectation, Jin explained as we entered the private offices. By welcoming all genuine customers and eliminating artificial price inflation, our volume has increased while maintaining quality standards. The accounting scrolls he presented confirmed his report. The establishment now served 3 times the previous customer base while achieving comparable profits through more efficient practices. More significantly, the quality of their finest works had improved, unhindered by Lord Qian's tendency to rush production for wealthy clients. And the Western supply routes? I inquired, knowing that maintaining these connections had been the Qian's primary motivation for their deception. Maintained and expanded, Jin confirmed. Your introductions to the Western merchants proved invaluable. They respect honest dealings more than they ever respected Lord Qian's attempts at aristocratic posturing. We shared tea while discussing future expansion plans and innovations in dyeing techniques recently developed by Jin's apprentices. His management style emphasized collective knowledge and recognition of skill regardless of rank or background, creating a workshop where genuine innovation flourished. There is one matter you might find interesting, Jin mentioned as our business discussion concluded. The Qian family has attempted to establish a new foothold in the southern market district. This development was unsurprising but worthy of attention. With what success? Limited, Jin replied with measured satisfaction. Their remaining wealth purchased a modest shop, but their former suppliers have been reluctant to extend credit. The imperial tax investigation severely damaged their standing among Chang'an's merchant community. I nodded, having anticipated this outcome. And the daughter, Mei Ling? She has approached several prominent families seeking a marriage alliance, Jin informed me. Thus far without success. Your revelations about their business practices spread quickly through aristocratic circles. Few families wish to risk association with their diminished reputation. The information brought no particular pleasure, merely confirmation that natural consequences had followed their actions. The Qian family's fall was not my creation, but their own, precipitated by choices made long before our paths crossed. After concluding our business discussions, I walked through the marketplace, observing the ripple effects of the previous year's restructuring. Other silk merchants had adopted more honest pricing practices, recognizing that Jin's success threatened their artificially inflated profits. Several had abandoned the practice of turning away modestly dressed customers, having witnessed the expanded client base attracted by Jin's more welcoming approach. Near the south gate, I encountered a familiar sight that momentarily arrested my attention. Lord Qian and Mei Ling, dressed in garments that still suggested refinement though lacking their former splendor, carried parcels for a minor merchant. Their expressions remained proud, but their posture showed the strain of reduced circumstances and diminished status. Our paths crossed directly, making avoidance impossible. Lord Qian's eyes widened slightly in recognition before his gaze fell, unwilling to acknowledge the architect of his downfall. Mei Ling, however, maintained direct eye contact, her beauty unchanged though now bearing the harder edge of bitterness. "Commissioner Li," she addressed me formally, using my imperial title with precise emphasis. "How fortunate to encounter you during your visit to our humble city." I acknowledged her greeting with a minimal nod, neither hurrying my pace nor engaging. Further, the ultimate demonstration of power lay not in cruelty or gloating, but in the clear message that they were now beneath specific notice, exactly as they had once judged me. Mei Ling's composure cracked momentarily as she realized the completeness of my dismissal. "We have established new connections," she stated with desperate intensity. "Our position will soon be restored." I continued past without response, their existence acknowledged but unworthy of further attention. Behind me, I heard the merchant calling impatiently for his parcels, reminding them of their current station with casual disregard for their former status. The perfect symmetry of consequence had manifested exactly as designed. Those who had judged worth by appearance now found themselves judged by the same shallow standard. Those who had valued status above character now experienced the fragility of status unsupported by integrity. My final destination that afternoon was Jin's shop, where I positioned myself across the street to observe without being noticed. The former Qian establishment hummed with productive activity, customers of all stations entering and leaving with equal treatment. Through the open doors, I glimpsed Jin personally attending to a dust-covered traveler whose appearance suggested limited means but whose questions revealed genuine appreciation for quality craftsmanship. When another merchant attempted to direct the humble customer toward less expensive goods, Jin intervened with quiet authority. Though I could not hear his words, his actions made their meaning clear. The customer received the same careful attention. As any aristocrat, his interest in the craft respected regardless of appearance. The lesson had been fully absorbed and implemented. A new standard had been established that would influence Chang'an's commerce for generations to come. The silk trade would continue its ancient traditions, but now with foundations built on substance rather than appearance, on integrity rather than deception. As I departed Chang'an the following day, I carried not only official reports for the imperial court but the satisfaction of witnessing transformation born from justice. The western trade routes stretched before me, connecting regions and cultures through the delicate threads of silk and commerce. These connections, properly maintained, created harmony between the empire's diverse regions, each contributing its unique strengths to a greater whole. The Chen family had sought to control these connections through deception and exploitation. Their fall came not from my intervention, but from the fundamental weakness of foundations built on appearance rather than substance. In their place now stood an enterprise that honored the true value of its materials and the people who worked them. The dusty, travel-worn merchant they had judged worthless had revealed himself as the architect of their undoing. The apprentice they had overlooked had inherited their legacy, and the proud family that had valued status above character now experienced life without either, their future determined by the same shallow standards they had applied to others. I rode westward with the rising sun warming my back, Chang'an diminishing. Behind me as the ancient Silk Road stretched ahead, the empire's commerce would continue its eternal patterns, but with subtle changes that acknowledged the true nature of value. In the imperial capital and beyond, merchants would remember the lesson taught by the fall of the Chen family and the rise of Master Jin. True worth lies in character, not appearance, and those who forget this truth risk everything they have built.